presented. The minutes of the November 8, 2018 meeting of the commission were sent out. Are there any additions or corrections there? And do we have a motion?
Motion approval of minutes.
A motion?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. And the minutes of November 8th are approved as presented. We don't have any public hearings scheduled for tonight. Before we go into new business, does the administrator have anything for the good of the order?
Not at this current moment.
Okay. First item on the agenda. David and Tiffany, and I believe they pronounce it Pink?
Yep.
Is that correct?
Just Tiffany.
It's Tiffany.
Okay. It's a minor subdivision request for Go Hawk Hideout subdivision. And you have the case in front of you. And Rachel, do you have any comments or that on this?
Yeah, I will just give the commission a quick update here for our audience as well. So the property is located just north of Shelby Lane and west of Euclid Avenue, which is just north of the Shiloh development. The request is out of city limits. However, the city does review all subdivision and rezoning requests within 2 miles of the city limits, which is why we are reviewing this evening. The applicant is requesting to subdivide the parcel into 2 parcels, one that would be 1.74 acres and the other 2 acres. There is an existing 33-foot easement for access onto the highway, which is proposed to be extended across Lot 2 and connect to Lot 1 for access. The applicant has indicated that the proposed subdivision will be served by a private well and septic system. And I have talked with Bremer County, and they have indicated that private well and septic are feasible for these lots. A shared well has been discussed amongst the applicant and the potential future property owner of the other parcel. And staff would just require at that time that the proper easements and a maintenance agreement is also recorded at that time. So the proposed subdivision does seem reasonable and does not appear to hinder any future plans in accordance with our city comprehensive plan. And so staff does recommend approval of the minor subdivision request creating Go Hawk Hideout subdivision. And you guys have seen that the applicant is in the audience tonight, so if you would like to address any questions her way, you may do so as well.
Okay. Within the commission, any questions, discussion?
My only question would be, what if anything would be questionable about this or controversial?
Would you repeat that? Sorry.
What, if anything, about this? I realize this is outside of the city limits and so on, but what would there be in terms of the agreement we have with the county that would be questionable about this?
So currently our agreement with the county has expired, which, as I found out, only basically stated that there were some areas of the city that we may not care as much to review if a rezoning or subdivision happened. However, since that agreement has lapsed, now we are responsible to review all subdivisions and rezoning in that 2 miles, which do include this. It's almost just a check and balance for the county, but I do not see anything with this proposal that would go against our comprehensive plan or future plans.
And I think that's the key to it. That our comp plan is suggesting one direction, and this seems to be consistent with that.
Correct.
What other comments?
That's helpful. No,
Yeah.
that's helpful.
Good.
The only question I have, it states in the preliminary plat that the source of water supply is a rural water association, so is that incorrect then?
That's incorrect. I have talked with the applicant in the county, and that was just kind of a missed mark, I guess, but they do propose a private well and septic.
I know they stated that, and I just want to make
Right.
sure nobody was confused by that.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the minor subdivision request for Gohawk Hideout subdivision.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. And the motion is carried. And if you'll forward our discussion to the county, that way they'll have a sense about where we are. Okay, let's go to item number 2 on the agenda. This is Carolyn Huber as a preliminary plat for Wilmore's Woodland Estates. And this is a project that we looked at, 2 months ago? 2 months ago or so, and went back for some additional work, and so they're here tonight.
Correct.
Mr. Gritters is recusing himself because he has what could be seen as being a conflict. So, comments, overview?
Right. So the applicant this evening is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for a residential development. The property totals 23.6 acres, and the preliminary plat includes 33 single-family residential lots and 1 outlot. So the property is currently titled in the name of Alice Barkhausen, Beverly Leistokow, and Carolyn Huber. Alice passed away, and the heirs of her estate are attempting to divide the property into 3 parcels to facilitate distribution of that land. The intent is to convey each piece to 3 separate individuals. In conversations with the applicant previously, city staff had indicated that we would not support dividing this property into 3 pieces without planning it properly for future development. As you can see, the applicant has now submitted an application for the preliminary plat and does plan to final plat the property into 3 separate outlots, which would be owned by the 3 heirs of the estate. So I'm just going to talk a little bit briefly about consistency with our ordinance standards. So this property is currently zoned R2, and the minimum lot size in that zoning district is 7,150 square feet with a minimum lot width of 65 feet. As you can see, the applicant has provided a variety of lot sizes, including some larger lots along the Cedar River. And all proposed lots exceed the maximum lot size, or minimum lot size, excuse me, and the lot width requirement in that zoning district. The size of the lots would also allow the possibility of 2-family homes, which is allowed in that zoning district as well. Outlot number 1, which is right to the east of Cary Elementary School, does not meet dimensional requirements for the zoning district because it is planned to be dedicated to Cary Elementary School in the future. If the property is not dedicated prior to full development of this site, the lot shall not be built on until it does come into compliance with our zoning code. So the newly created home sites would be expected and are proposed to abide by the setbacks in the R2 zoning district, which is a front yard setback of 20 feet, side yard of 7.5 feet, and a rear yard of 20 feet. The applicant is proposing 2 access locations from Adams Parkway and have been planned with a 60-foot right-of-way to meet city standards. Outlot number 1 has not and shall not be planned as an access point into the development. Any southern access into the site we would like to see from the existing city streets to the south, across from those. The applicant is proposing to connect to city utilities, and the city will require final specs for all utilities be reviewed and approved for the development prior to any development occurring on site. That does include any necessary easements that would be required. The applicant has not proposed a grading plan nor provided a plan for any stormwater or drainage. Depending on what's going to happen with stormwater, that could change the plan quite a bit, and there is a process to go through. They would need to, or the developer would need to apply for basically a preliminary plat amendment for that to happen, where it would be seen by Planning Commission and Council once again. Currently, park dedication requires 5% of the gross area of the development be dedicated for public use for parks or playgrounds. Using this calculation, about 1.18 acres of the total 23.6 acre development would be required to be dedicated. However, staff does see that this area has adequate park features currently, open space and some playgrounds. However, we don't know what the future may hold with this area, so park dedication will be discussed with the developer in the future, but currently that is the minimum that they would be required. So it is in staff's opinion that the preliminary plat request is reasonable and meets the requirements necessary to approve the preliminary plat. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat for Wilmer's Woodland Estates, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution. The applicants are in the audience this evening, if the Planning Commission would like to address any questions their way.
Very good. It's open for discussion.
I just have one question in reference to your point about a piece of this that in the future might go to Cary School. Can you talk, what does that mean? Can you talk about that?
So when the pieces are split into 3 separate outlots in the final platting process, if that outlot was given immediately to Cary Elementary, lot number 1 would not have access to a road because the pieces will all be owned by separate individuals. So the city would not allow that outlot be sold or dedicated to Cary Elementary until almost development of lot 2, where they can get access to their lot and it's not a basically a site without access to a road.
I guess the outlet I was thinking was a road to 9th Avenue. That's not right?
No.
Okay.
So that would be their basically personal driveway for the meantime, or to access their lot. But staff has indicated in both the resolution and our staff report that this shall not be a road into the development.
What is the connection with future to Cary School?
That might be a better question for the applicants. The only thing that I understand is it was something that they would like to do, is to give that piece of land to them.
You see where it's at. It's just right here until this road is developed. So there's a access to this area right here. That is the access until this road is becomes developed. Then they can give this to Cary, which is right here.
Okay.
But there are 2 access roads, both of which go to Adams Parkway. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it'd be either one of those
Yeah.
roads. Once that's developed, so there's access to this other outlot.
Right.
Then it can be given. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
I just said the one, but it's either one of those
Gotcha.
2.
The Lot 1 to the north along the Cedar River, how much of that is underwater during the 100-year storm?
So with, I guess, a final development plan, what the city does currently is with a building permit. However, I'd like to get that figured out upon a developer coming in. But we would have to figure out where the 100-year floodplain is. A lot of that, especially to the northeast, is on a relatively substantial bluff. So I don't think the 100-year floodplain would go up too far on that side, but those parcels to the northwest would definitely have to be looked at.
Do those acre areas include the whole property out into the river?
Yes,
So the buildable area is actually quite different than the number of acres that shows
correct.
in this diagram.
In some cases, half.
Yeah.
What it shows, yeah, like,
Okay.
yeah, number 3.
And I had asked the surveyor, I wasn't quite used to this coming from Minnesota, how that worked. We usually would just plat it to the shore bank, but I guess it's a rule in Iowa that you go all the way to actually where that property line was, so.
It's as
luck
though there's
using
no
it.
water there.
Right.
That whole area along the river is heavily wooded.
Correct.
Some of that is holding the bank. Is there anything in the development agreement regarding keeping trees and the number of trees and restricting them from cutting?
There is not, but upon your conversation tonight, that can be added for the city council meeting. Preservation of natural resources.
Yeah, coming from Maryland, we've had several developers who they wanted a view of the river and have surreptitiously cut down trees and.
So it's an unobstructed view.
Yes, and which really is not acceptable. And my concern here is you're going to lose land along the river because you don't have the trees there to hold it. And just from a viewpoint in terms of the trees, we need to keep as many as possible or replace them.
Okay.
How many developers are there? Is it one developer or more than one?
So the property currently is in thirds. It's a family. And that's kind of why we're going about this process. They are trying to find a way to divide it into 3 for those heirs, but not have to develop the property right now, put infrastructure in, put those lots in. They aren't developers. So a lot of this is a plan of what it could look like, and we've kind of figured that out. However, that's why we have so many stipulations in that resolution that state, at the time that one of them does sell, a developer can actually look at this and come towards us and give us a plan of, actual specs of what will be done, or they may change it, which would basically be going through this process again.
So there could be 3 developers.
Correct.
Which, to me, says the question before us is, how do we retain consistency along that
But this
piece
is
of
just
land?
this is just a preliminary plat, though.
Okay.
So
So the consistency, this parcel right now will be one piece, and this resolution and this preliminary plat will be tied to this whole piece, whether it's in 3 outlots or not. And so if a developer comes in the future and just wants to develop one piece, they will still be required to abide by this plan.
That's helpful.
Why did we choose to require this much preliminary work when we don't have a history of having done so with passage of any property to heirs in the past? This was, to me, seems to be a bit of an overreach on behalf of the city to control what's going on. I can't believe that we made these people spend this kind of money to come up with well, this is maybe what we'll do, even though when we sell it to a developer, we're going to have to start all over again.
So I can't speak for what was done in the past in the city. However, looking at our city code, it states that Basically, when someone is dividing a piece into more than 2 pieces of land, the city has discretion and such. Specifically, this piece was a focus of the city because it is in the comprehensive plan as an R2 zoning. So the density would be far more than 3 pieces, 2 at 10.7. That's more of a large lot or an agricultural use. Also, the city and the comprehensive plan promotes a lot of infill development and making sure that the money that the city has spent in providing utilities to areas, is well spent, which means pieces like this should connect in the future. There is a piece in the code that was not changed that no matter if it's a preliminary plat or what we call minor subdivision or major subdivision, there's no clarification and such. Both require the same submittal requirements, which has been done tonight.
Well, I will say that I think the subdivision into 3 lots, 3 outlets makes perfect sense. I have problem with the exceptions and requirements that are put on with it, such as the grading, stormwater drainage, easements, city parkland dedication, even though a minute ago it was said that we don't know how that applies, and we'll talk about it in the future, yet we're putting it in the resolution. I don't understand that. I think it is contrary to encouragement of future development of the city. I think we're getting way too much control and too much speculation going on.
Other comments?
I would take exception to that, and I think the requirements that we've got listed here are perfectly acceptable and required in order to make a decision on this.
Granted, you are an engineer, but I don't know that we have an engineer in the planning department that can look at a grading plan and really evaluate it. Stormwater and drainage plans, that is going to be the responsibility of the developer that does it, not a family trying to transfer property to each other.
Mr.
I
Chair.
think it's way out of place.
Yes.
I just want to clarify that the family, and we've almost made exception to this for this case, is not responsible for laying out a grading plan or a stormwater drainage plan. It's in the resolution that at the time of development, so that means if someone comes in and says, I'm pulling a building permit for lot 15, that we would say, no, before that, if you're going to develop this, we need to figure out the grading and stormwater and all of that. So when someone actually comes in to develop the site, not the family members.
Let's see if we have anything more here, and then I am going to make the exception of going and see if anyone in the audience there has something that they would like to say.
Okay.
This is not a public hearing. How about other comments from the commission or questions? Because you folks have come out tonight, if someone does have something they'd like to say, please come up, approach the microphone, give your name, address, and keep it to about 3 minutes.
Paul Leipzig, 7422 East Marquis Avenue in Reedland. My wife is Beverly, one of the owners. There's a question on the flood zone. I have FEMA National Flood Hazard Map here if you'd like to look at it. There's a minimal part of either lot in the floodplain.
So the commission can't see this, but it does look like the property is elevated to such that it really is a very small impact. However, once again, that would be further evaluated.
When the developer comes in.
Correct.
And that's showing
Yeah.
100-year or 500-year?
So this is Zone AE, so we kind of consider that a blob that doesn't have a contour yet. I would assume that would be the 100-year, however.
Okay. Anyone else that would like to say anything? Okay. Around the commission.
Good.
You ready for a motion?
I would like to see something in the resolution about the trees.
Okay.
Well, why don't you make the motion then?
Well, let's see. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat request for Romer's Woodland Estates with the additional comment about maintaining trees to the extent possible.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
Well, while I agree with you in principle or concept, it seems a bit vague in terms of how anything would be enforceable, or...
I'm wondering if it would fit under, like, so what the developer would be required to do would include the stormwater, the drainage. Is there something about erosion control or something is more what we're looking for than specifically the number of trees in there?
It's DNR controlled, or DNR always
Okay.
oversees that.
So then is it covered if we have the other requirements, the 1 through 8 with landscaping and other things in there? I mean, is it something that we have to say, or is it something that is going to be taken care of in the process that would be coming in the future?
I think you should add it, and we can maybe wordsmith that a little bit, but there's something to note about maybe more careful consideration to grading on site to limit the amount of trees taken out. Also it'll already be looked at in regards to the floodplain and, the management of that bluff, but the preservation of the larger trees is a different
Yeah,
thing.
it's more than erosion control. It's, just visibility and environment and all of that.
But how do you enforce that?
Yeah.
I mean, is that just a suggestion? I agree with you,
And-
Mary,
yeah, and I don't-
totally. And
yeah.
I just don't know what kind of meat it adds to the...
I think it's just hard to me, the landowner should be able to cut a tree down if they want to cut a tree down. So I mean, that's just part of it. So I have a hard time making that a requirement in there. But I understand the reasoning and stuff behind it.
If I may. So a lot of times in developments, people will also hire someone and at least go around and mark some of the larger, more significant trees. I don't know what the trees look like on this site, if they're more brush or scrub trees, but maybe, there's a note that those larger, more, I don't want to say important, but trees are marked and attempted to be preserved.
And you might check to see how, Maryland manages that in terms of along the Potomac, because that is very restrictive. And if they cut down trees, they're required to replace, I think, probably even more than they take down, and they can't be, little sticks. They've got to be large trees, so. And I doubt we want to go that restrictive.
Right.
But I don't want to see all of those trees gone.
So I think the hard part, if I try to look, because there is an overlaid where the trees actually are, but for some of the lots, they won't be.
There's a wiggle
yeah.
line in that
Is there?
drawing.
It feels like they won't even be developable, the ones closest to the river then?
Yeah, you're going to, some of them will be heavily, but, the lot lines don't show up on the,
Well, if you look though at the plan, the plat line, see the kind of curvy little line, the little cloud line? That's the tree line.
Okay. Yeah, so there would be, so lots 2 through 7 wouldn't,
The ones along the river,
Yeah.
yeah,
two,
1 through
1 through
7.
7 are, very
they're all
heavily,
in the trees.
Well, there's some of them that don't have any trees at all to begin with.
Pretty much
They're
all the small ones.
they're basic
Yeah.
farmland. I'm aware of the fact that we have a motion and we have a second. Would we be wise to entertain footnoting the basic motion so that the concern about good stewardship where it comes to the tree planting or the existing trees would be taken into account? Is there a way to do that so that, put ourselves in a box that in some cases doesn't exist?
No, absolutely.
Yeah, the better part of this total lot is farmland.
What if we say it this way? Recommend approval consistent with good stewardship of river edge maintenance and preservation of mature trees. Is that too far?
I totally agree with you, Kate, but what does it mean if somebody
I hear you.
comes?
You can't say, you will keep 100 trees and you can
Yeah.
cut down anything
Yeah.
smaller than 2 inches.
I mean, I love the idea of saying there's a preservation aspect to this that we want to see happen, but I don't know how to.
What if you just, in there, just say that the part of the development requirements is that the developer, provide the plan for, stewardship of the existing trees? So okay, his plan is, to clear out anything less than 2 inches, and he's going to take out the trees in this area around the house.
Well, there's, I voted, or seconded to get it on the floor to
Sure.
get discussion and
Yeah.
a vote, but there's going to be some clearing to put a house in
Yeah,
there, so there's
definitely.
automatically going to be that. The DNR is going to take care of the shoreline, they don't go much above that.
Erosion control, they will.
Well, I've been involved with that, and they've only taken care of the shoreline, that's all they worry about. That's what they told me in that situation where I've been involved there, but maybe there's in
Not
different
much of a
areas.
shoreline, it's kind of a cliff almost.
Yeah, but that's where they were in a situation where I was involved with it, they only worried about that, but, I don't know what the exact language is, but there's going to be trees cut down for a house, so it's,
And there's underbrush and there's dead trees in there and all of that. But just like we asked for, the landscape plan, we ask, for at least a plan on how they're going to handle the trees. Then we've got something to react to and respond to.
I guess I don't know why, because if we go over, it's not in this picture, but over next where like the veterans post is and those, there's no trees there. I guess I don't understand how we can really say that their houses can't have full view of it. Maybe I'm on the opposite other side of that, but it's, I don't know. I guess I feel like it's their property. You go around the corner and you've got the Waverly Light and Power. When you're on the river, it's not like it would be a sore spot. I don't think. I drive that way every day on my way to work and stuff, and so I don't know. I hesitate to be restrictive for something we all may not be involved in when it does get developed, and we're really restricting something that when I think of planning and zoning, I'm thinking of, okay, houses are going to go here. That seems appropriate, more so than exactly what they're doing with it, or that specific with it, I guess.
Once the trees are gone, they're gone.
Sure.
And
I'm kind of with Heidi. I totally understand that. I'd love to see those trees there. There's no question about that. But I don't know how we could legislate that.
other states have done it, other places have done it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, let's do it this way. I'll call the question. We'll get a vote, and then if it doesn't pass, then we'll go back at it a second time. How is that? If
Fair
I'll
enough.
call the question.
Okay, we're going to do a roll call.
All right,
So
Dane?
please,
When can you read
Restate
that?
it.
Okay. So, French moved that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat request for Wilmer's Woodland Estates with the conditions listed in the resolution, along with, you had such nice verbiage, Kate.
Yeah.
Do you want what I said?
Yes.
Recommend approval consistent with good stewardship of river edge maintenance and preservation of mature trees.
but is that part of the original motion, or is that an addition?
This is the first motion that came through with that addition.
Okay.
And that's what Kate heard Mary
Well,
say.
I wordsmithed
She
it.
wordsmithed it, I
That's
said.
fine, but that's the motion. You want to say it one more time?
So French moved that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat request for Wilmer's Woodland Estates with the conditions listed in the resolution, along with being consistent with good stewardship and preservation of existing trees.
Good stewardship of river edge maintenance.
Gosh,
Do you want me to, I can give you my note.
got it.
Okay. You ready to vote? It's been called. Administrator will go around.
Let me ask another question. If I vote no, what does that mean?
That means that we may introduce
A new
a
motion.
new motion.
All right.
All right. Dane?
No.
French?
Yes.
Gritters? Huser?
No.
Olson?
No.
Payne?
No. Oh, you're paying. She said paying. Hello. Is there a family resemblance here?
You have to live up to it. I'll go with yes.
Solheim?
No.
Begelman?
No.
It does not pass.
Okay, so
We knew that.
let's go back and give this
Okay.
another shot.
So I'd like to move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat request for Wilmer's Woodland Estates as it is in the resolution.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
I do have a question.
Go.
When it comes back as a real plat, what's going to be required regarding river's edge and trees? Is there anything?
Besides what the requirements of the DNR would be?
Yeah.
No,
But landscaping would be there.
correct.
Some type is on the list of things that have to be covered.
Right, but landscaping means like,
2 trees per
Shrubs.
lot.
okay.
But it does mean that DNR requirements are
Yeah, but we don't know
intact.
what those are.
Whatever they are intact. They aren't going to, I don't think, have a connection. They have a connection with erosion control and that kind of thing, but I can't imagine that they would have anything to say about trees.
No, they won't, except that the trees manage the erosion control
Yeah.
to some extent.
Yeah.
And so that's still maybe, they're allowed to be cut down, but maybe the roots, balls and everything are required to be maintained to keep that stability.
I mean, I have to say that it does seem a little disturbing to lose such a densely wooded site within the city.
And replaced with gabions.
Yeah.
Replaced with what?
Gabions.
Gabby,
Rocks,
it's a wire
rocks in a
cage.
wire cage.
Yeah. And just for clarification, Rachel, is there any reason why when this is presented to council, assuming the second motion were to pass, that a notation to council could not be made that there is a concern about the trees that are on the site.
So I will update my staff report to give basically a planning commission update, and in this, that will definitely be part of it.
Does that get at, I know it's a back door.
Helps. That
Okay,
helps.
it helps, okay.
And I can certainly share it, I mean, what I've heard here too as part of the council discussion, but while I can't speak for council, I would be surprised if we would change, add any amendment or anything. I mean, it's possible, I guess, but.
It's been done before.
Huh?
It's been done before.
Well, yeah, like I say, I can't speak for council, but just giving my best guess.
Okay, let's do a quick check. Any further discussion?
I would say, Mr. Chair, that I will still vote no. I think it's overreaching. I think the commission is trying to control far more than it has any right to. I do believe that the market and the developer will determine what should be done, not the planning commission. We're way too vague. Landscaping. I do believe that the landscaping buffering requirements we have to do with between residential and commercial. This is a residential development. I think we're going way too far, and I will vote no as long as number 6 is in the motion at all.
Okay. Anyone else? Ken, would you?
The whole 6?
Yes, because I don't think it needs to be in there. You've got to put in your plats anyhow. So why are we requiring hoops to jump through?
Most of it's all part of the code, though.
Those seem like basic requirements the developer would have to do, to know the streets are going to match up and.
So why do we have to put it in a resolution as requirements?
Because it is a requirement. I mean, yeah, the developer has to do it later, but it's not, they're not asking for it as part of this. It's,
I don't believe there's a need to point out all of the issues, and we aren't pointing them all out. I mean, we haven't got into conduit side or drainage size. So why do we even have to address it? It's going to be in there in order to be able to develop the site. I think we're just
How does it disagree?
grandstanding.
How does it disagree with anything in the,
It doesn't disagree.
then?
It doesn't
why-
need to be there.
Does it hurt anything?
No. Does it help anything? No. It's just,
Reminder?
when you're in the business, you get all the reminders regularly. We don't need to be out there playing around, presenting more and pretending we can control what goes on any more than what's legitimate. I think this is a stretch.
but what it is doing is separating the owner from the developer. And it's clarifying the fact that the owner who's wanting to break this up into 3 parts is not responsible for providing, all of this information, the, utilities and the drainage and the grading and all of that, that it's the developer's responsibility. So I think it clarifies things between the owner and the developer. And for that reason, I don't see any problem with it being in here.
I agree, but I think, in my opinion, we've required way too much of the owner at this point anyhow. We never have before, and it just seems to be a continuation of overreach. So for that reason, I can't support it.
I don't want to get into the, I think it's a form of transparency and communication. I think that we need to always lay out in front of people. So I guess I would disagree with you, Rich, but, that's my thought. But I'll call the question.
Can I just ask a question
Of
about,
course.
just a clarification question? Is there a difference between, just so I'm understanding the discussion, is there a difference between subdividing 2 versus 3?
Correct. So at a subdivision of 2 pieces, there really isn't much the planning commission can say, if at all. In subdividing 2 or more, we have more discretion based on our comp plan and basically our future plans for this site.
Roll call?
Dane,
No.
French,
Yes.
Gritters, Huser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Solheim,
Yes.
Bagelman.
Yes. Okay, motion is carried, and we'll forward that to City Council. Will they take that up yet this year?
No, it'll be in January.
Okay. Is there any other business to come before the commission? I don't know of any old business.
Move that we adjourn. I want to see the basketball game.
We are adjourned.